Hi, Hi everyone. In this video, we are about to see what is teaching and learning. What is teaching? Teaching is not merely imparting knowledge to students, not merely giving advice. Teaching is a skill of transferring, communicating, and construction of new knowledge over existing cognition. Teaching is not merely imparting knowledge to students, not merely giving advice. Teaching is not forcing information to the students. It is a process of developing knowledge. The process of developing knowledge takes place through experience. The students need to experience their own circumstances and learn through teaching. A teacher, despite of sharing the explanations, she has to put the students under the experience where they learn more than just listening to her. A teacher has to make the students adapt to the situations and learn through their own experiences. If this doesn't happen, if learning doesn't happen, or active participation of students is lacking, a defectiveness is being identified in teaching learning process, where a rote memorization is being generated, not merely understanding of components is being created for the students. Here, the defective teaching learning process or the flaws in teaching learning process creates a great impact to the students. The students or the end person who suffers out of this defective teaching learning process or lack of skills or components in the teaching learning process. A process of teaching where there is a lack of communication, participation, experiential and active participation of a student in learning situation takes place. Let us see what is learning and how learning happens. Why do you want to know what learning? Because in order to teach, we need to know what are the components of learning. We need to support students in their learning process. Hence, learning and the components of learning or the concept of learning has to be known by a teacher who is expected to be more effective. Learning is nothing but the acquisition of information, knowledge by means of understanding, analyzing, and reproducing on information. According to this, students need to experience their own knowledge, understand by their experiences, and add on to their informations existing in their stimulus or brain. Making sense of meaning, construction of meaning. Knowledge is generated when one learns how to construct knowledge over the existing knowledge. It is making sense or understanding the meaning of the component or concept and thereby adding the understanding to the knowledge. When one learns by understanding, the resultant is a personal change. There is a change in cognitive structure. This changes the way or the knowledge that is existing in them or add to the knowledge existing to them. So the cognitive structure develops. The personality also faces a major change while learning takes place in a proper way. And this personality change and knowledge acquisition helps them to identify the correct procedure, correct or acceptable, socially acceptable behaviors and the difference between right and wrong, and the concepts that exist in the society. When the learning is happening, the learning happens once the knowledge is being generated. Unless a knowledge or a understanding is not being generated, the learning is said to be not happened. There is a famous saying, I hear, I forget. We hear a lot of information in a day, but among all those information, only a small percentage or a fraction of percentage remains in our mind. And in an instant, it disappears from our memory. I see, I remember. When I see a say for sake the students, if they watch a movie, they remember the entire story. The perception of a concept or the visual experience of a component gets deep into a mind when compared to hearing a component or hearing a concept. I understand. Above all is the topping of the cake. I understand. When we do a thing that we have heard and we have seen, the experience that is being generated by self learning or self doing lasts longer than just hearing to the lecture or seeing to the videos or just hearing to the concepts. Hence, the learner has to adapt himself or herself towards all the three components in order to create complete learning of concept or knowledge generation. Changes in students' role. Over a period of time in uh, educational structure, there is a great change in this role of student, in the role of, in the strategies of teaching, in the infrastructural facilities, and teaching methodologies as well. So, in order to become a prospective teacher, we initially need to know what is the transformation meant by the student to adapt or to have a strategy that is being accepted by the students of current generation. Let us see what is the major shift or role shift of a student. In earlier days, the student was a passive recipient of information. They just kept on hearing the concepts transferred by the guru or the teacher and thereby taking it into the memory and recite it whenever required. This was considered as knowledge acquisition at a period of time, at a certain period of time. But now it has changed to active participation in the learning process. A student is expected to be active participation in the learning teaching process. They combine or communicate with the teacher to generate new knowledge and present current learning strategies. Reproducing knowledge. In earlier days, passive recipient of information a student acquired was just reproduced as in the name of examinations, or they were tested for their memory, the ability to retain the concepts taught and just deliver it as it has to be, as it was said by the teacher. But now it has been transformed to producing knowledge. What is producing knowledge? Producing knowledge is nothing but A concept when taught, a student has to go in depth into the concept, search for new novel concept, novel things or novel changes in that concept, add on to the existing concepts and learn and understand and accumulate it as a new knowledge. And sharing knowledge. What is sharing knowledge? When a new knowledge is being generated, it has to be shared to the peers, to the teachers. A teacher has to listen to the students when new things comes from their side also. When a teacher is trying to listen to the students, participation takes place in the classroom. Here, the students become the expert when new things are brought from the students' side. In earlier days, learning was a solitary process. It was an individual activity where a learner was left alone with lots and lots of knowledge that is being lectured by like the teacher or the guru. They need to accumulate all those things in the memory strata and assimilate themselves with the concepts. But now, learning has become a collaborative process with others. This collaboration takes place with the teachers and the peers also. A teacher and a student collaborate together to make learning an experiential one, active one. A student, so we saw what are the changes in the role of a student. Most probably, when a student and a teacher are two parts of a teaching learning process. When a teacher, uh, when a student changes, the role of a student changes by time. The teacher's role also has to be changed. So let us see what are the changes a teacher role has been met with. Initially, in early days, knowledge transmitter was the position of a teacher. They were the primary source of information. They provided all the information, whatever questions or queries or doubts, whatever may be, they looked back to the teacher for clarification. They were the content experts. There was nothing beyond to be learned or researched or found out beyond the teacher's knowledge. They were considered as the expertise of the field and source of all the answers. But now a teacher has become a learning facilitator. Here, the teacher facilitates the students with the all possible source of knowledge. A student can learn or acquire knowledge based on his interest, their own interest, pace of study, their own ability to acquire knowledge, or their own levels of learning, or their own interest of learning. Now, the teacher is being considered as a collaborator also. What is collaborating? A teacher needs to collaborate or help the student to collaborate the earlier component of concept and with the current innovative trends in this concept and help them generate new understanding. A teacher, beyond being a learning facilitator and a collaborator, is also expected to be a coach or a mentor, as school is a second home. A teacher has to mentor the students psychologically, physiologically, and ethically. Behavior modification takes place only when learning occurs. So this behavior modification has to be monitored and mentored in order to avoid deviations from the right path. knowledge is being navigator process. Knowledge does not stay on only with the teacher. It gets navigated or it gets converted or changed to the learners as well. A teacher now is considered as lifelong learner. Even a teacher has to learn with the student. Every set of students has a new novel ideas where a teacher could learn and adapt herself. In earlier days, the teacher was a controller of the entire class. There was a strict disciplinary control over the classroom where the teacher only was an active person. But now, teacher gives students more options. During the teaching learning process, a student is expected to interact or intervene with whenever there is a new or a change in ideas or thoughts over the concept thought. They are being given responsibilities and made accountability for those responsibilities provided to them in the teaching learning process. In this due course, teaching is not making alone a knowledgeable person. Student has to be transferred to a leader, effective leader, as they have a world beyond school, which has a societal construct where they have to exhibit their leadership qualities. Providing these responsibilities and making them accountable for a component makes them uh, clear with their leadership qualities and they are capable of handling things. This role shift in teaching learning process is to make a student teacher know what is teaching or have an inspiration over teaching. See, let us see now how we learn teaching ability. Teaching ability is considered as a skill. It is an art form. Teaching is not something that everyone can be a part of teaching or everyone can be a teacher. Knowledge transmitting or facilitating or supporting needs more understanding over the psychological components of developing students. This psychological components and the teaching strategies or being pointed out as a teaching ability or the teaching skill or the art of teaching. So in this, we are going to see about three major methods by which a student teacher can learn what is teaching or acquire the skill of teaching. Special prior or in-service training. In this method, a teacher, either before entering into the profession or while moving, while into the profession, while already existing in the profession, is given a systematic procedure to or orient themselves with new concepts or teaching strategies or methodologies or utilization of new innovative ICT programs that are being developed day by day in the education field. There is a benefit in this method. It is since it is systematic, it is easy to be organized. It has a pattern to be followed. Let us see the next method. It is observation of other teachers. Here, teaching takes place in real life situation, that is real classrooms, where a peer student teacher is expected to observe a elder teacher or experienced teacher, and learn this teaching skills by observing her. This method has few defects and positive aspects. It is a time-consuming procedure, as the student teacher has to spend most of her time sitting and observing the senior teachers, as well as there is always the inherent possibility of bad role molding. Students can acquire bad teaching skills. Bad teaching skills in the sense teaching has some positive components like brainstorming techniques, involving students into the teaching, active participation, and so on, clear with the concepts and so on. Defective teaching takes place once when the students are being denied in being a part of teaching learning. This is there is a possibility for everyone as a human being to acquire a positive aspect or model a positive aspect right from small age. We were just modeling our parents, and in other ways we were modeling icons like Cinefield, etc. Similarly, we may model the wrong aspects of teaching skills by observing other teachers. Let us see the third method. By a process of trial and error, while factually teaching in a model classroom situation. This is a concept that refers to the micro teaching, where a student teacher teaches in a model classroom, that is a classroom where 4 or 5 or minimal of 10 students of peers, co-learners are being seated as students, and she practices the teaching skills, micro teaching skills according to Bloom's taxonomy, and get immediate feedback of our teaching, flaws and the positives of our teaching. The benefits are it is an easy method as they practice one skill at a time. They become the expert of that skill. And when they are being expertized, they would effectively organize it in the real life classrooms. Immediate feedbacks help them to make changes in their teaching strategies or content delivery or questioning skills or blackboard skills that are being expected from a teacher. Foundations of teaching and learning. So one has to know what is the basic of activity before entering into it. Teaching is nothing far away from it. Teaching foundations of teaching and learning process has to be known or has to be understood by a student teacher in order to understand what is the situation they are going to work with. Transmission of information and concepts. A teacher is expected to transmit the concepts to the students, the information sorted out or listed out to students for learning. This is the initial main aim of education. Action interaction. Learning from each other, group negotiation of meaning. What is action interaction? A learner is expected to be a part of teaching learning process where they actively participate and acquire knowledge by experiential learning or learning by doing or active learning process. Group negotiation of meaning is nothing but they are being acquired by the ability to take up a knowledge or to reject the knowledge. A group discussion helps them to learn more or and understand what is to be adapted or accepted and what is to be left over. Values of sharing and respecting. This group behavior or group learning helps them to know what is collaboration, what is collaborative learning, what is sh- sharing or learning is a two-way process. By giving, by explaining to the peers, they learn new concepts from them also. And respecting the peers as they too are a good learner. Reflection, higher order metacognitive learning. This process is very essential part of teaching learning process as a knowledge once acquired need to be reflected in order to keep it in the brain or keep it in the memory strata for long-term process. Only when reflection or recalling is being done at the end of the teaching a concept, retention increases among the students. Assimilation to be more experienced. This process needs to be taken with a help of the teacher, where a teacher supports the students to accumulate knowledge that is existing over a concept in a student's memory with new knowledge, help them to analyze, generate, or modify the existing knowledge and restore in their memory strata. What is the relationship between teaching and learning? Teaching and learning are not separate concepts. Teaching and learning are related or interrelated with each other. Let us see what it is. Teaching, learning is a process through which the teacher, the learner, the curriculum, and the other variables are organized in a systematic manner in order to attain the preset goals of education. Teaching, learning is a process through which the teacher, the learner, the curriculum, and other variables are organized in a systematic manner in order to attain the preset goals. These preset goals are the objectives, the learning objectives, which are further divided into specific and general objectives of teaching. Teaching as an intentional activity. Teaching is undertaking certain activities that intention of which is to include learning. Learning is also an intentional activity that intends to acquire knowledge, where teaching is an intentional activity that intends to make learning happen. So, a teacher teaches with an anticipation that certain activities will result in learning, but not guarantee it. A teacher's role is now a facilitator, where she can provide all opportunities and sources of knowledge. It is the student's role to acquire or accept the knowledge given by the teacher. Teaching is a process of carrying out those activities that experience has shown to be effective in getting students learn. Teaching is a process where the activities are being planned and executed. The teaching process has three main functions. Let us see what are the functions of teaching learning process. Prescriptive function. Prescriptive function. What is prescriptive function? It is nothing but giving knowledge to students or providing remedial measures, feedbacks about their knowledge generated or corrective measures to acquire the right knowledge. All these components come under prescriptive function. It is similar to providing a doctor providing prescription for a disease. If there is a learning difficulty for a student, a teacher needs to provide prescriptive measures. It is also called as remedial measures of teaching, where the difficulty of the student is being recognized by the teacher, and the preventive or corrective measures are being provided by the teacher. Diagnostic function. This is a prior function. This is the first and foremost function of teaching and learning process. In this process, the teacher diagnoses or identifies what are the difficulties occurring to a student in the during the classroom or apart from the classroom that hinders learning process. After identifying the problems or difficulties of the learner, the teacher needs to prescribe remedial measures that could be helpful for the students to drive out the difficulty in learning process. The next is evaluation function. Evaluation is a process where a teacher understands how effective a teaching was, or what is the level of students' knowledge acquisition, how much content has been transferred to teaching. And all these could be measured or graded in evaluation function. Evaluation is the inevitable process in the teaching learning component. What is effective teaching? A teacher needs to be effective in order to in order to develop an effective student. William H. Burden, 1958, states the following steps towards effective teaching. Let us see them. Teaching should be related to learning. What is the meaning of the sentence? Teaching should be related to learning. A teacher needs to take up a component that she expects the learner to learn. It should never deviate away from the content. Second, appropriate teaching conditions should be generated for an effective learning. A comfortable situation, environmental conditions, psychological conditions of students to, or readiness of a student to learn. Teaching strategies and tactics should be selected in such a manner as to achieve the goals. The teacher must understand the relationship of teaching and learning in order to make the process a successful and effective one. Principles. Let us find out what are the principles of effective teaching. Encourage faculty student contact. There should be a relationship between the teacher and the student to know what is needed, required by the student, or what is being expected by the teacher from the student. Encourage cooperation among students. Encourage cooperation among students. A group behavior is the main concept of socializing or societal acceptance. This needs to be done in teaching learning process. Encourage active learning. A learner never should be a passive listener. A student should be engaged in active learning. Only then effective learning can take place. A prompt feedback is to be provided both to the teacher and the student in order to make modifications, changes in the teaching methodology of the teacher or the learning strategy of a student. Emphasis time on task. A particular or fixed period of time should be provided over the tasks, homeworks, assignments, projects to generate a sense of interest or to keep a disciplinary view on students in doing a thing or completing, finishing a project. Communicate high expectation. A teacher needs to open up to the students about our expectations, views, and what is to be done with clear explanation in order to get the right thing to be done. Respect diverse talents and ways of learning. A student who thinks out of box, the creativity of the students need to be accepted, acknowledged, and recognized in the teaching learning process in order to encourage them and think out of box for acquiring new concepts and new knowledges. Relationship between teaching and learning. Both teaching and learning may be formal or informal. See, what is formal or informal teaching and learning? It's nothing but in formal teaching, we follow a disciplined manner. We have a set of rules, regulations, prescribed time period for each and every subject, a timetable, prescribed activities, the way of writing, everything is kept in a systematic manner. What is informal teaching and learning? Informal teaching is nothing but where the learner learns with their own set of time whenever they are able to learn or learn with their ease. And formal and informal can be given another viewpoint where formal learning is that takes place in the institutions that are uh, the similar like schools, colleges, and all the educational institutions at various levels. But informal learning is the learning we get from the society, from the day-to-day life, from the day-to-day experiences they gain. Here, both teaching and learning, either they are formal or informal, is goal-oriented. At the end result is the key for success. A teacher has a goal to make students acquainted with the knowledge she expects. A student is goal oriented to attain the next strata of the society. Good teaching results in good learning. Wherever a effective teaching takes place, the learning is also effective and the students are more capable in acquiring knowledge. One can observe teaching but not learning. The only difference that lies between teaching and learning is teaching can be observed, but learning can never be observed. It can be monitored by the teacher or assisted by the teacher, but it has to be done by the learner. It cannot be substituted or carried over to the next. Only the good learners become a good teacher. Both teaching and learning require skills, creativity, intelligence, and operate on definite principles. Good teaching requires good communication skill, and good learning requires good listening skill. Only with good communication, a person will be able to transmit knowledge, and good listening skill helps them to learn whatever is to be expected from them. Only good learners become a good teacher. Teaching and learning process. Let us see a gist of the concepts seen earlier. Teaching learning process. Here, uh, internalization. In the process of internalization, a teacher remains as a sustainer, student as a extender. A teacher remains static at the position where the learner moves on from one level to the next level. And dissemination. The teacher position is a chairperson and student is a influencer, where they monitor or supervise the activities of the learner being done during the process. What is exposure? At the stage of exposure, the teacher remains as a motivator and the student as an attender of all the activities being performed. The teachers motivate the students to bring out or show up their talents. The next is participation. When it goes for participation, the teacher is the catalyst and student is the explorer. A teacher lists out the activities or the availability of resources or the key points of the concept or a topic. The student need to explore more with the key points given by the teacher or experience and identify or innovate new concepts. What is identification? At the stage of identification, what is the role of a teacher? A teacher is a moderator and student role is the experimenter. Here, the teacher provides modification to students' ideas. A student organize the experiment, generate ideas, and bring it to the teacher, which is being modified by the teacher to a correct direction. See the conceptual diagram of a teacher. Here, teacher's conceptual knowledge is provided to the student where reflection takes place. The students experiences the knowledge, interacts with the teacher. A reflection on student performance is given by the teacher, where a component or concept is being generated over discussion of the teacher and the student. As of now, thank you everyone. We have seen the concepts of teaching learning process, the relationship between teaching learning process. Any questions or any informations that is to be added or welcome from the viewers to incorporate in the next lessons, upcoming lessons. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.